We were driving. Visually, what it looked like was flashing lights, like as if you're driving through a construction zone. But it felt like it was 100 miles long, and it was strobing, and it felt like driving through honey. It's thickness there. Then we approached a boundary and went through that boundary, and it was like pop, we're back in normal reality. There's no construction behind us. We had to drive. He was driving, my brother was driving. We basically pulled off to a rest area. It was like, what happened to us? What was that?
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours. Back in 1988, a man named Chris Bledsoe had an experience that flipped his entire reality upside down. He was out near Cape Fear River in North Carolina, a place already known for its strange lights in the sky. It was supposed to be just a regular evening, him, the woods, and the quiet. But something happened that night that he still can't fully explain. Now, at some point, exhaustion just hit him like a wave and just knocked him out. And the next thing he knew, he wasn't in the woods anymore. He was somewhere else, floating in this bright, endless space. There were figures around him, shadowy but present, and he could feel them more than he could see them. He couldn't even move, he couldn't speak, but thoughts and images and feelings flooded into his mind, as if something or someone was communicating with him in a way that didn't really require words. And then, just like that, he snapped back. He was lying on the ground in the forest. Hours were missing. He was completely disorientated, but he was certain that something had just happened. The strangest part is that it just didn't end there. After that night, Chris started having reoccurring dreams. They were vivid, hyper-realistic experiences, and he returned back to the same place in that light-infused area, and the beings were there again, and he started receiving these messages. These messages felt very urgent, but they were just out of reach. Like he just couldn't fully understand them. And the best way I can say this would be, the door is just closing. It's just behind that door, and the light is coming through, but the door is just closing. It's just slightly ajar, and you can't make it all out. Now, also his family started experiencing strange things as well. Lights in the sky, they had eerie visitations, and in general, a sense that their world had shifted into something much weirder than they'd ever imagined. Now, Chris's story was investigated by everyone from MUFON to NASA and even to the intelligence agencies. And through it all, one big question kept coming up. Do non-human intelligence communicate through dreams to us? Are they reaching out in a way we just don't truly fully understand yet? So tonight, we're diving into that mystery. Welcome back to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm Rye, as usual, the Codega, and tonight we're going to be peeling back those layers of reality to explore something that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Contact with non-human intelligence through dreams. Yeah, through dreams. That's my sort of wheelhouse. My guest tonight is Daniel Rekshan, the founder of DSETI, the dream study of extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, Daniel's work is all about exploring the idea that dreams aren't just random brain activity, but possibly a bridge to something much, much bigger. Through dream work regression, hypnosis, and deep research, he's helping people make sense of experiences that don't just fit into our normal understanding of reality. Now, could dreams be a direct line to extraterrestrial communication? I don't know. Are people having real encounters in dreamlike states? Could be. I believe so. And if so, what does that mean for how we see the universe and ourselves? I I have so many more questions. And in all honesty, I don't even know where to start. So Daniel has so much information to unpack here, and I really don't think one episode will be enough to get through this all. And so I'm definitely going to have him back. Now, I want everybody just to get comfortable, open your mind, and get ready for a conversation that might change the way you think about dreams. And with that, let's invite Daniel to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on today. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. We talked last month prior to this, and and I had it on my calendar scheduled, and I was like, okay. And this weekend I completely forgot about it, and I looked at my schedule, and I'm like, it's Tuesday. Oh, here it is. Here we go. So Daniel, before we get into this too far, why don't you tell my listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and where they can find you?
Sure. I'm an experiencer, a dream researcher, a hypnotist, and a researcher. So you can find me at DSETI.org. That stands for the Dream Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or the Dream Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And that's one of the things that I think we'll talk a lot about is this sense of duality, or this sense of maybe a study of, maybe a search of, depending on your perspective. And that's why I labeled it that way. I feel like we're studying extraterrestrial intelligence through dreams, but some people think we're just searching for it. So I kind of like to leave that open. And
Leave it ambiguous.
yeah.
You'll just leave it to whatever you feel that fits for you is what it should be, I
Yep.
guess.
I'm absolutely inconsistent about how I describe that acronym in my various places. So you'll find them in that way. I'm on YouTube. So I have a podcast I just launched all about lucid dreaming and ET contact. So I dive deeply into the history of lucid dreaming. And spoiler alert, the very first person who explored lucid dreaming scientifically also reported non-human intelligence contact and sleep paralysis, stuff that we would be familiar with as experiencers of the phenomena. So that is a little bit of tidbit I didn't find until I deeply dived into research in the context of my PhD program. Um, you can also find me on the app stores and the Play stores with the Dreamwell mobile app. So that's an app that's dedicated to well-being through sleep, dream, and mindfulness practices. So if you're interested in learning about how to mindfully approach these topics, you can check out that app. Yeah, that's available too on the web at dreamwellbewell.com. So those are the places, dseti.org. You can find my books, podcasts, YouTube, and then dreamwellbewell.com, which is the app.
Wow. Super. You got a lot going on here, Daniel, and a lot to explore and hopefully to talk about as well. So where should we start with this? Where is the starting point? Or actually probably where is your starting point is the best thing to go with this.
Yeah, I'm like interested in the starting point you brought out with his Chris Bledsoe story. That's been a big thread of my research into the topic, and there's a lot of insight coming out of that case and looking into that. So that's something I'd love to dive into with you. But for me, I'd love to just start with kind of telling about my own personal experiences, because I feel like some of the things I'm about to say about dreams and contact, unless you understand I'm actually an experiencer who's been confused by this and gone through a journey of looking for answers and finding the answers, then you might think I'm like skeptical or saying, hey, all these things are dream or just sleep paralysis. And it's like absolutely not the case. I prepped up by listening to the Vicky's and yeah, and everything they say about sleep paralysis, I'm like, yep, seems like demons, seems like something's out there doing it. And so I will say all of those things are dreamlike, but I'm not saying they're unreal. I'm not saying they're not experiences. I'm saying they're dreamlike, and we can study them in dreamlike ways, and our understanding of dreams can inform our engagement with these entities. But ultimately, I'm saying they're absolutely real. And because one of my very first memories is of a visitation during sleep dream time. I remember seeing a kind of a light figure come from the driveway in towards my front door. I was looking from the second story window of my childhood home. I'm about 3 years old. I'm in bed. I'm looking next to a sticker my mom put on the window of a rainbow, said, if you're ever scared at night, just think about this and you know that God loves you. And I was looking at that, and then beyond my vision, there's this thing that comes up, and I'm like, what is that? Eventually, it kind of coalesced into the form of an Easter bunny. And to such a degree that I'm like, what is that? What is that? I'm like, oh, it's a bunny. Oh, it has a vest on. Oh, a little bow tie, exactly like the chocolate bunny that I go. And the reason why I had that kind of interaction where this Easter bunny kind of coalesced out of a light being that approached my house, um, I think was because I was understanding this other entity through the lens of what made sense to me at the time. It was near Easter time. Therefore, this weird spiritual thing is the Easter bunny. I've had that story out there publicly for 4 or 5 years. I when I started practicing, I put out all my stories on my YouTube. And then 3 weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, I see on the Experiencer subreddit, does anyone have experiences of Easter bunny visitations? Are these screen memories? What's going on? And 150 people from the Midwest were like, yeah, I saw the Easter bunny. Yeah, it looked weird. No one believes me or whatever. So it's a consistent motif that I'm just discovering I'm a participant in. I thought I was alone. I thought I was kind of crazy for going to the Easter bunny instead of an owl.
Yes.
So
Yeah, seeing the Easter Bunny is quite the unique experience. Now, do you feel that maybe he took that form to be more acceptable and less threatening to you? I know that's a possibility, and I know you said it was a time near Easter, and you're associating with that. But did it morph, or was that your
I
interpretation
think
of it?
I mean I continually go back to this memory and I've worked it over and over again. So the thing I think I physically saw as a child was kind of a light being. It's sort of
Okay. And can you describe that a little for me?
yeah, a light being is sort of like the sense is if I were to draw it now, I would draw a vague, tall kind of lights emanation. But seeing it, I didn't actually see it. It felt like a presence. My wife described a visitation recently where she's like, "These are densities. They're sort of spiral densities of other dimension or whatever." And I go, "That's it. That's it." Um,
Now, so
I
so
yeah.
you're saying that you don't necessarily have a form, is what you're saying, or is it?
I did not see a physical form. Even in my memories, I don't see a physical form. But what ended up happening was there was an agreement. It felt like telepathic about how I would perceive it and conceptually understand it. And so it was as if I physically saw the bow tie on the thing, but it sort of looked like it was kind of like coming into focus of a magic eye, right? Like you're like, what is this? What is this? Oh my God, this is a thing. And so I think we agreed on that understanding and interpretation. It and I, this non-human intelligence or whatever we want to call it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I like that explanation now. But when you're saying light being, I'm I'm older, and so if anybody's seen this movie, the movie Cocoon, I I don't know. Have you ever seen that movie Cocoon, where there's these aliens living in these pods, and when they open up, these light beings come out?
I saw that as a kid, and I haven't seen it recently. But yeah, no physical light presence either. It was really just a. I would even describe it as psychic vision right now. If I were to have it again, I would go. I didn't see anything physically. It's
I
sort of
understand. I
psychic.
understand completely. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I had an experience about a year ago with this, almost a being that looked like that. It was more of like a yellowish in the center and bluish on the outside, and it was really short, and it was so blinding. And and when I talked about in my opening there about Chris Bledsoe, where he said he couldn't stay awake because exhaustion took him over. That's what happened to me. I woke up and to see this being beside my bed, and I woke up at a time that I normally wake up at, and I just could not keep my eyes open, and I was fighting and fighting to keep my eyes open. It was like it it made me like just go out. All right, let's get back onto your experiences.
Sure, yeah. So that was like one of the first experiences I had, the 3-year-old experience. worked with missing time regression in my own self to kind of understand that. And through those explorations of what might have happened back then, um, what happened, I've connected it with an event when I was maybe 20 years old, 19 years old, road trip with my brother. And we were driving through Minneapolis, and out of Minneapolis, basically. We lost about 3 hours of time. The last time we remember was getting onto an on ramp from a diner where we called our parents, and it was light. And the next thing we remember is coming to this space of reality in this really strange um, state of consciousness. It's very, very strange. We went through a sort of the consciousness. What the contents of that experience was? It was we were driving. Visually, what it looked like was flashing lights, like as if you're driving through a construction zone, but it felt like it was 100 miles long, and it was strobing, and it felt like driving through honey. It's thickness. Then we approached a boundary and went through that boundary, and it was like pop, we're back in normal reality. There's no construction behind us. We had to drive. He was driving, my brother was driving. We basically pulled off to a rest area. It was like, what happened to us? What was that? We decided that the best explanation was we were drugged in the diner. So the diner was like a 1950s diner. It's all chromed out, but it had psychedelic art. So it was like a mash of 60s, 70s psychedelia in a 50s diner. We were like, someone must have put acid on the payphone. But we've done psychedelics before. I've done psychedelics after that. It's never like that experience. Like, it doesn't make sense to me as a mechanism. But it was a rationalization.
But for both of you to have that experience at the same time, kind of, that doesn't really usually happen with psychedelics. You don't have like it's very seldom to have like a shared experience. And I'm not saying it's rare. It happens.
Well,
but
here's the kicker. So fast forward from there, I was 20 years old. Now I'm almost 40. In 2020, I was like, okay, I have to start my practice. I got trained in hypnosis in 2012, and it took me 8 years or so to go like, I actually really want to practice with people. I felt really weird about it for a while, but 2020 basically got to end of my rope and was like, I have to do the thing that's in my heart to do, the vocation I'm called to do. So I really said a prayer to be of service to others, especially extraterrestrial experiencers, because I felt I was trained enough to support them through my hypnosis and psychology degree and my experiences and all my interests and stuff like that. So when I started practicing, I had one client come to me, and they interestingly had adopted a pseudonym that was it was basically 14 letters long. 12 of those letters were described the exact place name my brother was living in the time. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to reveal personal identities, but it was literally the city and country my brother just moved to. This person adopted that name, and they said, hey, I'm reaching out to you for missing time regression. I had this experience outside of a major city. I was driving with a friend. We went through this thing. There was a boundary, and at the boundary, there was a weird dog. And I didn't see a weird dog in my experience, but I went, oh my God, my brother talked about a dog witch. A dog witch that was a dog and a witch at the same time at the boundary. And that clued me in. I went, oh my God, that's the same motif. It's exactly the same thing. They're describing it in the same way. This person has adopted the place name of my brother, right? Like, it's so connected. That was the first time I thought about it in 15 years. And right after that, I called my brother. I said, what do you remember about Minneapolis? Let me record this. So he tells me about it. I'm like, oh my God, like, it's the same motif of missing time, kind of drop out of reality, come back to. And that really kicked me off as to understanding there's a true phenomenon of missing time that's not explainable through blackouts, drugs, psychedelics, whatever. It may or may not be alien abduction in the way that we typically understand it. And that's why I'm putting forward the notion that it's dreamlike, because there are really strong precedents for not remembering things in dream experiences, for having entity encounters in dream experiences, for feeling paralyzed and stepping into and out of realities through dream experiences. So I go, that was actually dreamlike. So we can work with it like a dream. And I applied that hypothesis, like, let's work with this like a dream and see where it goes, with a client who came to me. And we had interesting engagement on that. No major facts came out of that kind of regression, but kind of understanding or different perspective or spiritual growth emerged from that. Um, that was the experience. So I went to a missing time regressionist, and I went back to that experience for me to go, what happened in that diner? What went on? And I didn't get any more information about that. It basically was like, this entity took over your minds, and it was an astral abduction type experience where the physical bodies were driving in the car. They didn't teleport us. It's sort of as if the way it was explained to me in the regression was my brother kept driving. They did that in the regression, they said, to demonstrate physical control of the consciousness and the bodies. So they go, we can do this anytime you want, anytime we want, basically, is come in, take over, drive you 3 hours away, construct this experience. And it's, and I had a direct contact with whatever that entity was communicating through there. And it might be my own self, it might be something else. We have to parse all of that out. But the actual experience I had through the regression was, it was like telepathically talking to something. It gave me information I didn't understand. My body was in a trance state that was like way out. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm approaching experiencer work, working with experiencers, talking about dream work, is because of this series of events that seems to have brought me into relationship with what people might call non-human intelligence throughout my life. I'm kind of bracketing the sense of non-human intelligence because I'm not sure what is human and what's not in this experience, but I know it's other than conventional. And so I adopt that language. Yeah.
And I completely respect that. Um, I'm having a bit of an epiphany here as you're saying all this with this astral abduction. It a lot of people, and I'll be honest, like I probably would have been skeptical a couple of years ago. I would have been skeptical, but in your physical body is staying here, but your astral, but your consciousness is being abducted, and this is almost an answer for one of my earliest interviews, which was with Andy, a terrifying experience of lost time, demonic visitors, and an astral assault, a nightmare in Michigan. And Andy talks about, he worked at a hotel, and there was an incident in the hotel where he went up to the third floor to see what was going on, and he went through the rest of his day, the rest of his night, everything else is going on, but he was at the end of a shift. He was called back into the hotel because some of his work wasn't completed, and they went back on the cameras, and they have this camera on the third floor watching him standing in place for hours and hours. When in fact he said, no, I went there. There was just water all over the floor, and I cleaned up this water, stinky water, and then he went back and continued his work. And this happened a second time, and he went back and the same thing, but in the cameras, because I said there's a camera, he's just standing there motionless in this one position for hours. His physical body was there, but his consciousness was, or his astral body was doing something else, or abducted, just wasn't there.
I love that. That's a fascinating. I'm glad that there is camera documentation of that experience, because this is one of the things that experiencers who have come to me for missing time regressions have told me through their regressions, that this is the wisdom that comes out. There's like, I go, where was your body? And they're like, it was just there, right? Like there's one person I'm thinking of, they had 8 hours of missing time in a cabin, and they were like, was I taken? Was I not? And through the regression, they go, no, I wasn't taken, right? It was the body was there, the consciousness is away. But that sounds like a fantasy, right? Like it sounds like a normal fantasy. And that's what, when I say these things are dreamlike, most people go like, oh, that's a fantasy, it's not real. But it's actually ultra real. That's the words people describe. They go, this is ultra real. This is like stepping out of the matrix and stepping back in. And so I feel as if that experience, the first person you talked about with the camera, I think that is happening a lot. That at least, half of the experiencers I worked with in the Missing Time Found book kind of reported something like that, and they like report it to me through these sort of like synchronicities, through like podcast interviews. Someone's like, oh my god, I need to connect with you. And then there's like this sort of a revelation of like, I see omens in my life where I go, I cannot doubt that these omens are caused by some sort of synchronicity force this person is bringing into my life. It's not from me. I feel those omens and they feel different and they relate to this session. And I go, I have to pay attention to this session in an important way. It's a message from the universe or whatever. And I'm thinking about this because I carry around a rock in my bag from one of these synchronicities that to me felt like a gift from one of my clients' encounters, right? With a mantis being who the case study is Ren in the book Missing Time Found, and I still have I still have that rock, and I still think about it because it felt like a gift to me from the mantis beings that abducted or engaged with him, who, and this person explained to me clearly and distinctly through multiple modes of thinking, both like a spiritual mode of thinking and a physical mode of thinking and all sorts of things. Really what you described of being just stuck and zoned out, but having a multi-layered experience that really was basically the spirit world saying, hey, this is a dreamlike thing. And here's proof, because it gave me that rock that looked like, the rock itself looked like a gray alien. And it was meaningful to me because I had spent the winter painting rocks to look like gray alien heads and placing them like the people in the town placed, they would paint rocks to look like Easter eggs. And this was a way for me to connect with the Easter bunny that was an alien or whatever. And so it's like so strange personal imagery, but it's like it's really strong for me personally. I go, this is meaningful to me. It's not meaningful to anyone else. And if anyone is like, I don't believe this, I would go, hey, you don't have to believe my omens, but just be open to your omens and see what the language of your own dreams and synchronicities bring forward when you're sort of open to it. And I would bet that anyone who is skeptical of my omens but open to their own would have an increase of omens or synchronicities happening when they start to look for proof of this level of engagement. Yeah.
I totally agree. Once you start to look, you start to see it. It opens up this. It's like taking these blinders off, and it starts happening more and more, and it picks up more and more, and the synchronicities continue to happen. And I do say, everything happens for a reason. You just have to pay attention. There are tons of signs for us. We have to realize that there's signs for us. One quick example was I had this one question this one time, and I asked the universe. I said, I need a sign. I said, like, give me a sign about this thing I was thinking about, and I looked up, and there was a billboard on top of this building that said, if you're looking for a sign, this is it. Man, I kid you not. This is exactly what it said. If you're looking for a sign, this is it. It's there for you. And some people will say, oh, no, that's just a coincidence. No, I was just asking for it. So there it is. So you just have to be paying attention and opening your eyes. It can be on someone's T-shirt, a phrase on someone's T-shirt, it's or a rock that you're given. There's so many, as you can call them omens, I call them signs. I think they're one and the same, and they're there for everyone to see. Super fascinating. Now, well, when we're talking about this, all I can think about is, man, I got to get back to Andy, from Nightmare in Michigan. I got to tell him this, and so please continue, because I definitely want to know more as well.
Yeah, I'm from Michigan too, by the way, Northern Michigan, the UP. There's like, and I wonder where
Okay,
that hotel
okay.
is. Like,
Look at this. Yeah. So I don't remember what city he was in, but and we talked about us having some crossovers on where we've lived as well. Strangely enough, I dated a girl in the UP,
okay,
and I went there. I met her in randomly in Minnesota, and and I was in the UP for a little bit as well. So there's that connection. Wow, we got some synchronicities as well. So yeah, definitely some connections there as well. Fairly close. Yeah. But I don't know. He was in a city in Michigan that was kind of university based, meaning there's a lot of people that a lot of the population was university students. And when they left for summer vacation, the population of the city or town dropped drastically. So that's all I really do know about it. I don't know if that helps or anything. It that narrows it down. I'm not sure, but it might not. It definitely doesn't give
yeah,
you
no,
exact.
I can't guess, but I would suspect there's some overlap there. So yeah, from that experience, so I just sort of to continue the thread of this non-human intelligence, the Easter bunny or whatever it is, you know, whatever that source of the missing time experience I had when I was 20 years old with a car that was very serious. I I had a series of dreams, and now I call this character Galathog the Grey, which is a sort of constructed, fictionalized idea. But I wrote another book called Galathog the Grey's Field Guide to Anomalous Geometry. And anomalous geometry is simply the geometry present within the body marks of people report associated with abductions. So for a long time, they go, oh, I had an abduction. There's a mark on my body, or it's associated with demon visitations, ghosts, and other things, witches, and things like that. Um, and the other type of geometry I look at is the pulsation or formation of UFOs and footage of UFOs. So I end up using ruler and compass geometry to analyze these different sources of geometry. And I do so because my dreams taught me to do that. And the reason why they taught me to do that was because I was inspired to write this Missing Time Found book about the dreamlike nature of contact. I had the experience I talked about with Ren, who explained to me this thing. I shared these omens with Francis in the book. That's the case study that remembered helped me remember my own experience. So I had that whole experience. I wrote the entire draft of Missing Time Found, and then I discovered an anomalous body mark the day after I finished the draft. So I finished the draft. I go the next morning. I woke up and I was like, I'm going to take a sauna to celebrate the fact that I finished the draft. And I look down at my leg and I see a series of 8 dots set in a regular pattern. And I went, oh my God, that's like a abduction mark, or this is a body mark. The reason why I was thinking that is because I was engaged or still am engaged with a community called the Red Grid Mark Phenomena Experiencers and Researchers Facebook group. So I'm now a moderator of that Facebook group. I've been paying attention for 3 years. The Red Grid Mark Phenomena is a typical abduction mark that some people say. So Bud Hopkins, the abduction researcher, said, hey, this is alien abduction stuff. The experiencers say they don't know what it is. 18% or whatever go like, I think it's abduction. The rest go, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So it's a very interesting community because there's a lot of discussion about extraordinary topics, but not necessarily debunking in an aggressive way or like you're wrong or you're crazy. It's just sort of like what's going on, and they entertain these notions. So I applied the practice of CE5, so that's human initiated contact, and I said, whoever's out there making these marks, and I became convinced they were not nefarious, that they had a sense of humor and had a sense of personal understanding that I was watching them. And so they responded through synchronicities. And it was some guy posted 2 Pythagorean decads, which is basically the bowling pin thing, marks on his butt cheeks. And for me, because of the synchronicity and the way he did it and the humor he brought about it and the way I received it, because I like deeply studied Pythagoras in 10 during that time. And I was like, what the what the fuck? Like, this is so funny. This is so crazy. They're not little grays stealing bodies to do genetics here in this case with the red grid mark phenomena. I'm curious, and I'm so curious. I recorded a human initiated contact invitation to whatever beings were making those marks to make marks on my body in some way, shape, or form, so long as it's according to the principle of non harm for the highest good, love and light, that sort of thing. And I forgot about it until that moment. And I went, oh, it's the red grid mark. And I was like, wait a second, it's in a line. It's not the red grid mark. The dots look different. It's a different type of body mark than this experience. And I knew it was geometric. I knew there was some sort of structure behind it. And I just knew I was too stupid to figure it out at the time. So I went, you know what? I'm just going to forget about this body mark. I'm not even going to work with it right now. I'll have an omen. I'll have a sign that'll tell me when I'm supposed to. And then 6 months to the day on the winter solstice, a series of dreams happened. And these were visitation dreams. And it was, again, a sense of a group of entities said, you know what, you said you have some motivations to be of service to others in the world. We like that. We think you can be of benefit. We need you to follow our instructions. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And I thought the prompting was to deepen my magical practices or meditation practices, or get really serious about hypnosis. And I started doing that stuff. I started prepping for this, but I took a break to look at a sacred geometry video on YouTube. It was like Zen or something. And then that next night, the same people came back in the dream and were like, you finally followed our instructions to a T. Thanks for doing that. And it was about connecting with geometry. It wasn't about any of the like stuff I put on myself. I was like, I need to be a better meditator. I need to do my dream recordings better. I need to do this, that, the other thing. But when I took a break and looked at geometry, they loved it. And they said, now follow our instructions until we're done talking to you. And they showed up, they gave me dreams, they gave me geometries in my dreams, they, through synchronicities, gave me instructions about how to work with my dreams. And then at the end of, I don't know, like 10 days or something like that, they were like, now you're ready to look at your body mark, analyze it. And I go, oh my God, there's geometry in here. This is geometric. It's a geometric communication, and I'm discerning what that is through the process of analyzing its geometry. And then I looked for other examples of it out on the internet. And I found several people who have had these geometrically placed dots in a line associated with tall, gray, extraterrestrial, dreamlike encounters. And I'm just like, and they are their marks were like way clearer than mine too. Mine, half of it was smudged. And if I showed it to you, it'd be like, maybe. But like these people.
Before you go too far, I have some questions. These red marks, are they specifically red? They're not like moles on your body or like brown dots? Or they're red, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, they're definitely, they look like, people go like they're bed bug bites, but they're not swollen or itchy like that. There's no bed bugs or whatever. They are, for me, they are in these dots in a line experiencers. Like I have acronym this as dial, dots in a line. This type of body mark, because the red grid mark phenomena has RGMP. I was like, okay, let's do a 4-letter acronym for this. But the dial marks look like the red dots. They look like they're burned or puncture wounds or scoop marks. That sort of level of impact on the body. When they heal, it is clear that the top layer of skin was either burned away or punctured away. Like, it's not there. The top layer of skin is not there. So it's definitely like something's happening with the skin there. And so that for me was the dots in a line body mark phenomena that I discovered it or whatever in myself. And then I looked out, and experiencers have reported it. I've found reports all over the place about these things that are often associated with entity encounters and dreams. The red grid mark phenomena is different. It looks like a burn or a bruise. Sometimes they say it's maybe a heat rash or something, doctors say. So they are definitely red. I've seen examples where they are a little bit darker, a little bluish. They look kind of like a blood phenomena, like a bruise phenomena. Those are very regular patterns. Some of them are explained by sitting on hot tub drains or yeah, so I found those. I track those down, and I can figure out what make and model of those like are on people. It's like a bizarre kind of investigation process, but some actually resolve into absolute mystery, and they have a pattern to those ones have a pattern to them that are associated with dream contact and entities and things like that. It needs further study. I'm doing that further study, but it'll take years to sort of collect all that and analyze it and be like, yeah, this is really something that can convince other people. It's not just bed bugs, rashes, suction wounds, or whatever. Um, so that was the experience that came up after writing the Missing Time Found book. That was the experience then that guided me into working with these dream beings through a practice of geometry, of meditation. And through that process, I came to relate with an entity, the character that was the Easter Bunny, the thing that was associated with a missing time event. I consolidated those separate events as a single entity. I go, okay, this makes sense to me. That's what that in the missing time regression, it basically said that, but I don't know if I'm conflating this and generating something in between me and the world or what. So I'm very cautious about what I think that this is evidence for something extraordinary. But what that extraordinary thing is, I still am not sure. But I label it Galathog the Gray. And it shows up to me like a tall gray extraterrestrial in dreams that are associated with it. I see it clearly sometimes, I see it not clearly other times. My wife, will see things in the sky and be like, that's it, this sort of thing. And so there's kind of a rich tapestry of experiences related to it. Yet again, it is a thing that I had to put my foot on the gas. I had to actually meditate. I had to do this research, engage with it. I had to go through regression experiences and kind of come to that understanding. So I know I've said a lot. I'm sure you have a couple questions here.
No, no,
Uh,
no. I'm just listening. I'm enthralled by this. This is very, very interesting. And it ties in nicely to what Vicky Joy Anderson saying these screen memories. She it's your body is sleep paralysis. It's just you being like removed from your body. Your body is remaining motionless. You can't move. Maybe it's not like a full remove at that point. Maybe you're not necessarily disconnected, but you can't make any movements in your body, and then you're taken away. And maybe they are implanting this screen memory, and you think that you're still in bed, when in fact you're being taken away and given messages, downloads, or uh, it could be nefarious as well. I think there's two sides to everything. I think there's the evil, and then there's the good. You know, I always think there's a balance. A lot of people, including myself, believe that some of the aliens are demons or the fallen angels, which means that other aliens have to be in balance with that. So there has to be good entities, like in angels. So it very much could be true. So I do find this really fascinating. Um, I I don't have any questions. I'm just listening. I'm just taking some notes and writing down some stuff. Super interested in everything you have to say. Though I did have something to say. You said you had a lot of these dreams where these entities were coming to you. Can you describe a little more in detail what those dreams were like? Were you just sit in a classroom and they're just instructing you on a blackboard? You need to study your geometry, or was it you're on a craft, or where were you in these
It's
dreams?
a really good question. I think that's really important. Anytime someone communicates encounters, to go, where were you? How did you perceive that information, and how do you interpret that yourself? So how do you make sense of that? So when I work with people, I often am curious, what is the exact mode or means of knowledge, because that gives them more information about gives me more information about how they're perceiving things. Like the questions you did with the Easter bunny, like how are you actually seeing that? Is that physical? Is that not? Like what's going on? And so being able to openly ask those questions, I think is now more more respectable, because instead of going like, are you crazy? Did you just make this up? Is this fantasy? This sense of being able to even ask that question, like, did you physically
Yeah,
see it or not?
where it gets me is I'm
Yeah.
interested. You got me hooked here, because there's so much to our world that the
Yeah.
Easter Bunny.
So the dreams, when they first showed up in the body mark experience, I had a series of 3 dreams that kicked off the body mark. And the first dream was just sort of a dark space or whatever. I don't exactly remember the sequence. I remember the dreams themselves were dark and formless. Yet I knew something was there, and it sort of seems like echolocation. And if there's no visual information in there. It's just like imagine closing your eyes. That's it. But knowing where everything is, knowing that there's something there, and there's a sense of knowingness, like, hey, there's an entity here. What is that entity? In the dream, I would have to really focus on it and sort of kind of almost feel it to understand what's there. And yet I have an impression. So what's happening? This series of dreams right before the body mark involved, there was one dream where I was with a giant archetypal tortoise, turtle, a tortoise. It's like a turtle that was the world in the dream. So that's why it's a funny word for me. Turtle that was the world. And I was just with it, and it was with me. This was like the night before the body mark. And I'm like, and it was like, as in this dark space or whatever. And it was like, this is a lucid dream. This is what it communicated to me. It's like, this is a lucid dream. This is what a lucid dream is. And it was like, I woke up from that and was so confused, because I had a really different impression as to what a lucid dream was before that time. And I'm still wondering, like, is that really the case or not? But the instructions were like, hey, this is a lucid dream. You are lucid in this experience. And I paid attention and kind of parsed that out more. And lucid dreaming is something we could talk about for a long time. But in the dream series, that's what happened. It was the dream presenting a bizarre situation, absolutely dark, saying this is a lucid dream. That was a contradiction for me. And then the next day, the dream that I had was I was in the same kind of dark space, but I don't remember that at all. All I remember is being in a long series of hallways, gray hallways, many doors, and one of those doors was my body back here. And I remember walking through that into the door that was my sleeping body or whatever, going, I need to forget this. I need to forget this. I'm not going to remember this at all. And at that point, I had already been cued off. There's a weird dream series going on. I want to write it down. I want to pay attention. But I woke up with the conviction that I needed to forget the dream. I just needed to forget the dream. And so, again, it was like that dark space, and like a flimsy motif. It was like the flimsiest of screen memories. There's a gray hallway forever, right? Like just repeated doors. It's a very cheap screen memory, basically, where I'm like going, I have to forget this. The dreams afterward, the 6 months afterward, where they came back to me and started to explain things to me, the again was in a space of deep darkness, formlessness, that I just had knowingnesses. There were definitely entities. They definitely felt like entities. They had personality. They felt distinct from me, coming from a different realm to explain to me and engage with me something. It was not like personal dream characters that I'm very familiar with. It wasn't like deeply archetypal dream characters either. It was like some other mode of perception in the dreamscape. And then that kicked off a series of dreams that helped me understand how to work with geometry in them. So there were specific dreams that were kind of constructed, and they moved in, like, there was one dream where my sun lifted up and moved in a geometric pattern. There was, and so I was like, what is that? So I drew that geometry right upon waking, kind of thing. So and then they became more and more like normal dreams after that series, right? So they visit, it's like that, dark, formless. They, and then they go back to my normal dreaming a few days later, that sort of thing.
Wow. That that is really interesting. Okay, I'm glad that you shared that with us. So it's all over the place, kind of. There's all these different messages, all these different forms, and you're open to reading them and open to understanding them, because dreams are more than just your brain rehashing what you went through during the day. And like I said, I do believe. I know we talked earlier. I do believe that dreams, some dreams, do have that part in them where we do recycle events that happen during the day, but that's not all the dreams. We are there is so much more to our dreams than this. It's an alternate reality that we are truly living, because, for, oh man, for a third of our, 8 hours a day, which is 24 out of 24 hours, that is like a third of our life, we're sleeping and we're in this other dream state world. So it's fascinating. I think I'm so into dreams. You know, I I told you I document all my dreams, and I've been writing it down since 2012. Though lately I've been having a little issue recalling some of them, but some of them are so in depth, like alien abductions as well, that I dream about, and events that are particular, and precognition as well, things that have happened that I have dreamt about as well, years before them happening, and then they come true. But it's but again, there's me stealing the interview again. Let's continue on with you. So you've had all these experiences. Is there any more that we want to discuss before we start going into a little more of your research?
Yeah, I mean the research and the dreams. I mean the dream practice I use to do my research. All of my research is based in my dream practice. So um, I have a master's degree in East-West psychology. So that's a non-clinical degree. It's an academic degree that looks at Eastern spirituality from a Western psychological perspective. So it emerged from the dialogue of East and West that happened in the 60s and 70s in California, basically. And so that is a humanities field. I'm looking at literature, I'm looking at social sciences, I'm looking at psychology and seeing how that informs these experiences. So my research involves a lot of literature review. I go through literature databases about psychology and dreams, and I just put it together in theories, right? So that's a theory. In the basic theory, it's like it's kind of it's so bland. It's so like ET contact is dreamlike. That's the basic hypothesis, and that I think we need in the scientific community for a variety of reasons. And I can talk about the research history context. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about dream incubation first, so that to let you know that that's my practice. So I do research, I do everything based on dream incubation. So dream incubation is the practice of intending to have a dream to solve a problem, achieve healing, have an experience, or whatever, right? So this is an ancient practice. I look to the ancient Greek god of Asclepius, who's the god of medicine and dreams. In the ancient Greek world, there were temples all over the place to Asclepius, and he has a staff with a snake going up it. He's generally seen as an old man. He sometimes takes the form of a beautiful youth or a dog that heals you. And so,
That's interesting, right? A dog, right?
yeah,
Didn't you tell about your brother seeing that
yeah,
dog?
yeah. Okay, that's beautiful. I like that connection. I never actually connected those two. I because he's so associated with a snake that the dog is sort of like whatever. But so people in the ancient world would have a sickness, either a physical sickness or a spiritual or emotional sickness, and they would make a pilgrimage to one of these places to have a dream that healed them or gave them knowledge or something like that. They would talk to a priest. They would say, "Hey, I'm having this issue." The priest would go, "Okay, take a bath, smell some, I don't know, smell some of these herbs, sleep in the temple. And then in the temple, they would have a dream that responds to their intention. The Asclepius might come to them as an entity in a dream and heal them directly. They might actually see Asclepius in their dream and wake up to have a dog lick them in the ear or whatever, like a snake wrap around their body because they had dogs and snakes in the temple. Um, or the person would wake up from the dream, report the dream to the priest. The priest would interpret it, give them actions to do, and then the thing would be cured. The final step of that process was testimonials. So they would inscribe on the wall, Asclepius healed me because of this dream of being lame or blind or whatever. So that whole process is the archetype of dream incubation for the West, basically. And so I look to that, I go, this is the generic practice of having a dream that's transformative and beneficial. And so for me, I generally have a practice of setting an intention before I go to bed and having a dream, recording the results, and then taking an action that is meaningfully connected to the dream in some way, shape, or form, because I believe that the dreams are gifts to us if we hold them that way, that are guiding us towards innovation, creativity, healing, and connection. And they really want us to take action in this world. Like for some way, the dream side cannot take action outside of through our actions. So the best thing you can do to work with a dream practice is to take an action. And that might be to say, hey, I had a dream about you. Let's talk about it. For me, it's been creative. I did practices with this for years about art. I went and I did art as a plein air landscape painter. I went out to the forest and field in the daytime and made landscape paintings. And then at night, I went inside or OBE and I recorded the results through my art. And that was a practice I did as an artist. And I've taken that.
Sorry. Can you explain that a little bit more? I know OB is out of body experience, but when you go into that little bit, just that part you're saying there, that OBE
Oh,
through the painting?
through
Or
a dream state. So I was very inspired by the work of the modern artist Kandinsky, who was inspired by the Theosophical movement. So he basically said the role of an artist is to reach out to the spirit world and take something back to sustain the people around you. It's sort of like he saw that as a transubstantiation. So you go internally to the spirit world or soul world and you have an experience and you bring that back through your art. And so for me, I went and I did astral projection work and out of body work and dream work. And I go, there's places out there, just like there's places in the world. So as an artist, I went to the forest and field to do my painting in the day. But then I went to places in the spirit world at night, took back whatever that was and put it into my art. And I did it at first in a really naive way. I would just paint pictures of what I kind of saw. It looked like mashups of tarot cards or whatever. A lot of entity portraits, that kind of thing. And then I ended up getting a series of downloads from these sources and develop a way of working with them so that now I go to bed and I will receive a dream and I'll wake up from that dream. And sometimes there's imagery in there, but oftentimes there's just a deep conviction and a knowingness that I need to write something. So all of my books are written that way. Like all of my books are written that way. Most of my academic papers are written that way. Like I do the research myself, but then I go to bed. I'm like, I need help with this. And then I wake up. There's most recently, I had a dream. I was in just like a place that had a beautiful university, a restaurant, and people were there and they served me nice food. And then from there, I go, okay. I woke up and I immediately wrote 18 pages about ethics related to harmful false memories and hypnosis and research about experiencers. And it was very technical writing and it would not connect if I shared that dream and I shared the writing, you would go like, how does this connect? But it's the irrational and the rational side of the mind working together somehow. And so that's my practice of research. That's how I'm doing my research. And I try to produce scholarly writing that's up to the standards of the academy. So that's based in scientific literature. The formatting should be appropriate for scholars, because I feel that experiencers need much more grounded work in the academy, like scholarship around this. And so I'm trying to leave behind writing that for people, that like, if someone, because I don't think a lot of scientists or scholars are particularly versed in these experiences. So I'm hoping to bridge that for them.
And I used to that used to be bridged thousands of years ago. Well, maybe even hundreds of years. We lost that bridge, and we're just reconnecting it all now because science and we'll call it magic. At one point, were one and the same. They were connected, and magic can be everything from your dreaming to our synchronicities, to manifestations, everything. We got to come back to that understanding that they are connected. They're not separate.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was excited to talk to you about. This ties into the angel demon conversation as well. Um, so, my first book is the Book of Galactic Light, and this is the result of a 30-day Western esoteric ceremonial magic practice. I'm not initiated into ceremonial magic. I don't know exactly what the Golden Dawn does or whatever, but I know that in the 16th century there was a character named Dr. John Dee. He worked with a man named Edward Kelly to channel not extra. He thought they were angels, but they produced Enochian. This is the source of Enochian magic, and so this is like, I'm sure you're familiar with that somewhat, but so I go, when I first started getting into this, I was like, he's like, if you look back into the histories, that's the guy to turn to understand the connection of UFOs, extraterrestrials, scrying, remote viewing, intelligence community, colonialization, empire. He holds it all. He's the clue. He's the key to understanding UFO disclosure. I'm convinced of it right now. So I looked into that. I was like, okay, so he used a method to communicate. He had a method to communicate. So I tried that out. I used the Enochian language. I explored that way. Again, setting it within the context of a very strong prayer to be of service to others according to specific named principles and a kind of engagement, because I'm like, are these demons or not? I'm picking up a phone. Will a demon answer, an alien, an angel, myself, or what? And so I did that work of exploration and visionary experience that then produced this Book of Galactic Light, which was visionary experiences. And so that gave me a kind of understanding that perhaps these experiences are in part demonic, angelic, and things like that. And it provided a precedent for understanding the role of remote viewing in UFO disclosure and things like that, because that's a huge thing. There's psionic whistleblowers now who are talking about that. And so there's actually a precedent in our history where it wasn't so separate. Science and magic wasn't separated at that time. It was like the next generation, like literally the next generation just separated. So he was the last guy in the lineage of Western thinkers associated with a type of philosophy called Platonism. So that's Plato and Socrates. There's some guys 2,000 years ago who also had encounters with the other side. Um, so we're dancing around a lot of topics here, and I feel yeah.
We totally are, and I'm like, man, I definitely want to go into but I don't think we're going to do that today. But I think well, Dr. John D. I would love to go into that further. Not today though. But when I bring you back, another interview, of course, this individual who did his research and your research and experiences as well, I think that book itself could be a whole episode, a whole interview on its own.
Yeah, most definitely. It stands out. It's not a scholarly book per se. The Book of Galactic Light. It's really a visionary experience. It's very much a connection experience with entities. I did do a protocol, CE5 protocol associated with radios. So this is sort of like I had two radios in the room, shortwave radios. The idea is sort of like a seance. Basically, is like if they're tuned to the same frequency and one chatters and the other doesn't, or you're actually just picking up radio waves because really nothing's going on in Canada in terms of radios at this frequency or whatever, then something anomalous is happening. And some people in the human initiated contact field feel that that is a way that extraterrestrials can communicate with us. So I was trying that out. I got some communications. I put all of this, I videoed everything. I put it on my YouTube channel. It's terrible for my algorithm because it's just really long content that you can't make a lot of sense of, but there is actual, it seems like data coming through the radios and their anomalous behaviors in association with both the chanting of the Enochian language and the visionary response I was narrating as I experienced it.
It kind of sounds similar what you're describing, kind of to like a spirit box in the paranormal world, how they sit there and they listen, and these words kind of pop up or come through the station that through the white noise. It sounds similar to that.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Okay, okay, Daniel, I don't want to end this, but I know we're hitting our hour mark, and I definitely want you back, of course, and we should continue this conversation. But so for everyone who's listening, make sure you like and comment and tell me that you want Daniel back as well. Uh, you know, I've, more comments really helps out the show. So, but Daniel, I want to say thank you so much. One last time, tell everybody where they can find you, or is there anything else you want to cover before we end it here today?
Oh, I feel this has been a great conversation. We touched in on so many things. I sort of feel like a future conversation might sort of lens it in. I mean, the connection with Chris Bledsoe is a very interesting. I did a deep study of one of his sightings that was brought into my life by way of synchronicity and testing these hypotheses of geometric communication. So that's revealed to me a lot about the nature of how experience or testimony is unfolding in the context of disclosure. And so I'd love to get some of that information out there to people because I find it to be meaningful and insightful. And so I'd love to dive into that the next time we talk. You can find me at DSETI.org. That's DSETI.org. That's my website for the dream search or study of extraterrestrial intelligence. I have a YouTube channel where I have a podcast coming out. And you can also get my app, Dreamwell, at dreamwellbewell.com or on the app and Play stores. My books are on Amazon. You can get all of my work, by the way. I do it by sliding scale donation. You can, if you just click a few times in the DSETI website, you can download all of my books. I really appreciate it when people buy them from Amazon because I get money for it. You can also do a write-in donation for them too, but you can also download it. Same thing with my services, my missing time hypnosis services, DreamWork services. Is all done by sliding scale donation that you write in after the fact. So I'm not asking because people are always like, oh, everyone's looking for money in these things. I'm actually not doing great in terms of making money off of this, but I'm having a great time and I'm learning a lot. And I think I'm helping people. And so the commitment to this sort of sliding scale donation after the fact for the services is part of that. So I really want people to feel safe and know that I'm not like trying to extract money out of them. So you can get my stuff for free. I wish it weren't the case that I had to have to present this way because it would be easier for my finances, but whatever. So I just want to say thank you, Rai, for hosting me, and thank you to your audience. I tuned into the audience through several of your podcasts and live streams, and I just want to say that you've got a great audience, and I'm glad they're listening to me here. And so thank you for considering dreams. And I would just just absolutely encourage anyone to turn into their own dreams to find truth and wisdom that can navigate you through any amount of confusion. Even if these experiences are scary, nefarious, they feel bizarre, alien abduction, you have the capacity yourself to navigate through them because you're a powerful dreamer. And if these things are indeed dreamlike, you're the one ultimately in control, even if it doesn't feel like it. And that's why I think it's important to talk about it more. So once again, thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you to Daniel for coming out tonight. And, that's it for tonight's journey into the world of dreams. We're definitely going to visit it again. And I hope tonight to visit again as well, every night. The contact that we can have in our dreams, it's so unknown. To say that it's not happening is we can't just say that. So what do you think about these experiences? Are they glimpses into another reality? Are they messages from these other entities? Are they angelic or demonic, or something? Is it just something we're just only beginning to understand or remember or rediscover? I would say that. One thing is clear, that there's more to consciousness than what meets the eye. Sounds like a little bit of a Transformers quote there. But, again, a huge thank you to Daniel for sharing his insights and for the work he's doing with DSETI. Now, if tonight's conversation has resonated with you, if you really enjoyed it and you've had experience of your own, don't be afraid to explore them. And sometimes the answers we seek are waiting for us in the places we least expect, maybe in our dream world. And if you so want to, if you want to, reach out to me, send me a message. You don't have to come on the show. Just reach out and just have someone to talk to. And with that, everyone, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosity wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms of stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. The velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and all